Hi, this is Walt from Lone Wolf Rolls-Royce Bentley Service out here in Chino, California. Today we're going to be talking about servicing the rear hubs for a 1979 Rolls-Royce Corniche. Let me just pan at some of these parts here briefly. These are all the parts that are already been pre-cleaned, are involved in servicing the rear hubs. This is only one side of the rear hub assembly, and this is also the axle, which we'll be discussing a little bit shortly. And as you see, there's a boot, and there's the splines that go right into the differential. Okay, let me pan to the car. This is the car in question. We're doing a series of jobs on this car. It's a 1979 Corniche, and we've already discussed the front suspension pins in the last segment, and now we're going to go to the rear brake assembly. This is the side that has already been taken apart. As you can see, let me get the light on it here a little bit. You can see this is the axle carrier. You can see how grungy and dirty that is. I still have to clean this all up. As we go over here, very dirty, a lot of grease, a lot of slime. And then far ahead there, you'll see the splines for the differential. On this particular year car, very advantageous to take out. This only applies to Corniche, not to Silver Shadows. Only the Corniche. 79, I think up to about 82. The only time you can take the axle out is when you take the hub assembly out. Just because the universal joints are so far inside this assembly. And if you got any problems like changing a boot, this is the time to do it. That's what we'll discuss very momentarily here regarding the axle, and I'll show you what I found, which I still have to tell the customer. The other side assembled looks like this. You can see there's a lot of pieces here. There's the axle. Right here is the rear strut, and as you can see, the rear strut is leaking. And we'll be discussing that in another segment. Okay, here's the rear caliper, rotors and hub assembly. And as you can see on this side, all that has been removed. Up yonder you can see that there's this is all for the rear leveling system, and we'll discuss that in another segment as well. Okay, let me go back to the bench. First of all, I'll show you some of the old parts that I'm going to be replacing. Starts off with the rear brake rotor. These are the old style, and there's actually a ring that's goes right here on the side. And that actually, let me get some better light here, that actually has just fallen off, and that's one of the reasons that we're changing this rear brake rotor. And this is also one of the reasons we're servicing the rear hubs. In addition to that, because this car has 50,000 plus miles on it, it's also due for a rear hub service, which you take everything apart and clean up all the bearings, check them, and then lubricate them and put everything back together. So we're trying to cover as many things as possible while we have this car apart, so we don't have to keep charging more and more labor to go in the same area. This is the way we like to practice over here. We like to cover everything when we're in a certain quadrant of the car. That way we can save the customer, believe it or not, labor costs for future work in the same area. Okay, as you can see, this is the rotor. These are some of the various parts that you have to change when you do this type of service. This is an O-ring, this is a felt seal, and this is a aluminum washer that actually sets the bearings, and then you have to lock it in place, and you cannot reuse these. I've seen people reuse them, not recommend it. You actually have to peen the edges over. If you look over here, you can actually see a little bit of a peen, and because it's aluminum, it has no memory. You bend that thing back and it will break, because it's a stupid metal, and we'll treat it as a stupid metal. They're not that expensive, and that's just one of the things that you got to change on this particular type of job. We also like to change the woodruff key. Woodruff key is actually what locks up the rear axle to the hub and actually makes the car turn. And because it's such a small item here, we always like to change them. It's recommended by Rolls-Royce to change them, and to not change them would just be a very silly thing, because the amount of effort it takes to go in here and fix this, if it did shear, you just don't want to hear about it. So we do like to change this as well. Moving to the bench, you will see I have all the new parts. This is the new nut, the adjustment nut. This is the new felt piece here. Here's the new woodruff key, and this is the new O-ring, which opens up larger, as you can see. Okay. These bolts here have all been cleaned and reconditioned. These bolts here, there's 10 of them. They go right here. This is your stub axle. This is your hub carrier. Your rotor actually gets bolted to this. These are the large bearings that are in the back here. They've already been cleaned up and checked, and they're reusable. This is a seal retainer. This is another seal retainer. This is where the felt seal goes into. And if you move this like this, this actually goes right in here like that. And the seal literally goes behind that, and it's tapped in place. Alright. This, let me move this around here. This is also a bearing distance piece. This goes on first. Don't forget to put that on, otherwise you'll have big problems. You'll never be able to adjust your bearings correctly. Alright, these are actually the main bolts that hold on to this whole carrier here, and these 4 bolts go here, 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 and here. These are the 2 caliper mounting bolts, and they go here and here. These bolts, which are a special type of bolt, works with a 12.7/16 socket. These are the ones that hold the brake rotors on, and they just go here. There's 10 of those as well. These are the small little bolts that hold various hydraulic pipes in position so they don't interfere with the drive line. This is the crossover hydraulic hose that you take off the caliper in order to remove it, and that's all been reconditioned. This is the rear handbrake, part of the rear handbrake assembly, which actually activates the rear caliper parking pads, and that all has been taken off and cleaned. It was so dirty, which they all do. They all get very dirty, and then of course you have to put a lot of grease in here so this thing moves very, very freely. This is just one of the actuating arms for the handbrake assembly. Sorry about that. And then moving to the rear axle, as I explained before, it's a good time if you have to change the axle boot. This is a good time to do it. That's why I always recommend taking this out. If your seal is leaking on your differential side seals, good time to change them. And in this case, I also checked the rear universal joint here, and this thing actually has got a little bit of a hang up here, and if you look closely you'll actually see bearing pin indentations here, and you can actually feel them. There's actually a little bit of an edge. What you're going to do is if you put this thing back into the car, you will feel this through the drive line. It's going to make it feel a little unusual. So this is an opportune time to literally change this whole universal joint, and I'll have to let the customer know about that as well. So as you can see, it's a very involved project, and it takes many hours to do this job, you know, especially if you want to do it correctly. There's a lot of cleaning and preparation. There's a lot of reviewing of parts, so that when the whole thing goes back together, you're going to have a very good job, and the outcome will be good, and you'll be happy, and the customer will be happy. So I hope you learned something today. This is always educational to see how things work, and this is the job we're doing today and for a few more days, as it does take quite a bit of time. Okay, over and out from Lone Wolf, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.